Hey, and welcome back to episode 58 of the Cellarcast. Recording this a little later than I would have liked, but I actually kind of forgot to record. I took a little nap today. I was trying to fix my sleep schedule, so I was trying to stay up from last night to this morning, or to this evening. Didn't end up working out, so I closed my eyes, and one thing leads to another. Now, I'm awake enough to do the podcast. So I just saw a video, horrifying. It was a sea turtle eating a jellyfish. It was it was horrifying. It was kind of funny at the same time. Apparently, I didn't know this. So sea turtles are usually herbivores, right? They I don't even know what they eat. I guess kelp, something like that. But they make an exception for jellyfish, because apparently jellyfish toxin does not have the same effect on a sea turtle as it does on a person. Jellyfish toxins just it gets them high. It has a similar effect to marijuana on the human brain. So imagine you're just floating around in the sea, and there's just a thing floating around that's you could just munch on it and get high. So this sea turtle rocks up to this jellyfish. It just takes its fin and just starts shoveling the tentacles in its mouth. It looks like it's eating spaghetti, just chowing down, just. And just my guy is about to have the time of his life. It's so horrible. You're just seeing an animal being eaten, especially weird because a jellyfish is so inhuman that the idea of it being in pain or something, or experiencing emotion or something like that, or fear, is just so weirdly off-putting. I don't know. It's it makes my skin kind of crawl a little bit, but also there's this funny turtle going. Anyway, I'm all packed up for the week. Again, maybe won't have a podcast out next week. I don't know. I might record it Monday of, and get it out a little later. But yeah, so I'm gonna be out of the house literally all week next week. Having a blast, having a good time. I'll let you guys know about it later on. But before then, we need to go to the comment review. Yeah, play the song. Yeah, we haven't had one of these in a while. Just a dearth of comments recently, but we got two. First one comes from Lozy. He issues a correction about Bleach lore. Apparently Aizen was the last war potential. He asks, predictions for EVO? I mean, trailer reveals, champions, etc. I love just the league taint of calling characters champions. It's so funny. There's a funny thing, so in Smash Brothers, I guess, while we're on the topic of fighting games, I guess I can just go over a brief explanation of it. So in fighting games, there's three phases that a move will go through, which is the wind-up of the attack, essentially, the period of the frames where the attack can actually deal damage, which is the active frames, and then the point where the attack is finishing after it's done the damage. In the course of an animation, imagine throwing a punch. You pull back your fist, you throw your fist, and then you pull your fist back. That last part is what's called the recovery part of the animation in fighting games. However, in Smash, they don't call it recovery. They call it lag. They call it end lag on a move. And the reason for that is because in Smash, everyone's up special is their recovery move, right? That's what it's referred to as you're your up B or your up special is your recovery. So they can't have two overlapping, totally different uses of the word recovery. So they call it end lag. So you can tell when someone comes from a Smash background if they call that end lag, which I think is funny. It's just like one of those little things, almost like a dialect. Anyway, so predictions for EVO. So EVO is next weekend, and unfortunately I will not be able to watch it because it'll be at a convention all weekend. But I can, I'll be keeping up with the news as much as I can, and I will be, because it's always an exciting time, because a bunch of announcements and stuff. And I do have some things I will predict. I will make some predictions. So, there's some pretty safe ones that you can bet. Number one, I believe we're going to get at least a teaser for Tekken 8. I would be surprised if it was like a full-on trailer or something. When I say teaser, I mean maybe something like the Street Fighter 6 teaser, like just two characters or something. It's like, I guess Heihachi's dead. Supposedly. I don't know, maybe they'll bring him back. Nightmare Heihachi. Jin Kazuya. I guess I could see that's where like the plot line goes from now, is like Jin versus Kazuya. Turn on the light. It's getting a little dark in here. If they might literally just show up Jin versus Kazuya, and then like 8, just the number 8, and everyone's gonna go It would be so funny if the first character they showed off was like Kuma or Panda. That would be or Mokujin. Like, it's all, take all the weirdo characters from Tekken and just give them their own game. That's the whole launch roster. Just like Mokujin, Kuma, Panda, Yoshimitsu, Dr. Boskanovich, all the funny guys. Yeah, I think that's a pretty sure bet. It's almost... They have definitely been working on it since the last DLC came out, Lydia. Geez, that has to have been like, what, a year ago? And you have to imagine that, like, the character team... They've probably been working on Tekken 8 for at least, I would assume, like 2 to 3 years at this point. The way we generally understand fighting game timelines go is, like, I think they even said, like, when SF6 got announced, they said they'd been working on it since... Oh, geez. 2017 or 18? And then I remember on that... What was it? It was the 1-year anniversary of Strive. They said that they'd been working on Strive since like 2016. So like a year before even Rev 2 came out for Xrd. They were working on Strive, in whatever capacity. I think Daisuke said that he wanted to, like, he was supposed to work on Strive like standalone kind of. But then Revelator and Rev 2 ended up being much bigger projects than he anticipated, or than the team anticipated, so he had to come back to kind of organize it. But yeah, so fighting games often, like, halfway through the game's life-ish, halfway, 3/4 in, they're probably already working on the game, on the next one. And so I would assume that for at least the last couple years, they've been working on something for Tekken 8. They kind of, like, want to... Excuse me. Obviously focus all the resources on, like, getting the game out, and then, like, the first few years of content they want to push a bunch into, and then afterwards, when they're kind of over the major, like, customer acquisition period where the growth is going to be a lot slower, they'll probably shrink, actually, in terms of, like, player base. The remaining player base gets more entrenched in the game. It's like the dedicated players. That's when they started working on, like, okay, we have these people who are, likely going to buy the DLCs or whatever. We don't have to put, like, a ton of shit into the game because most people who are there are already, like, in for the long haul. So we're going to have a smaller team work on, like, DLC and stuff, like new characters, stages, and such, and the big team's going to go start work prepping for the next game. So you get your like little feed of content every couple months for the existing game, and then they trade off. Yeah, that's my prediction. At least a teaser. I would be very surprised if it was a full blown trailer. Maybe they'll go like Big Dick and they'll like actually drop like a whole ass like minute 2 minute trailer or something like that, like just a big cinematic. I would be a little. I don't know. I don't know. If it was like a big, just like cinematic, like something that would play in like an intro, like an opening movie or something like that, I could maybe see it, because they would just need to have like an idea of like what the roster is going to be, and then just hand it off to like an animation studio. Like who are those people who did the Street Fighter Cross Tekken scene, like cutscenes? Digital Pictures or something like that. Just hand it off to someone like that and just say, hey, make a cool opening, like we'll get a song and whatever. Yeah, so that's kind of my possibility space on the Tekken side. For Street Fighter 6, I think it's almost certain that we're going to get one more character reveal, maybe even a double. I think I did the math back when it got announced, well, when the leaks came out actually, for the roster, and I was like, I think that if they had like at the point when the reveal trailer happened, like the actual full-on trailer, and then the leak came out like almost immediately, and you could see how many characters, like roughly 22 character roster. I think I did the math of like, yeah, they basically, if they revealed a character a week, they'd have like 4 months of reveals. So obviously they haven't done that. They've only shown off like one more character since then, just Guile. But they might. I don't know how they plan it, how they're going to schedule it. I mean, it's totally up to them and like when their release date, like their target release date or release quarter is, and how they kind of want to play the marketing. Like, do we want to just do constant feeds like the KOF like SNK did with KOF 15? Do we want to kind of like drop a bunch, wait a bit, and then like a few months before launch, or 2 months before launch, just start dropping a bunch of trailers and shit? I don't know. But I anticipate that at EVO, at least, we will absolutely get a character reveal. Potentially even 2 characters. SF6 looks like, going by the leaks, one of the biggest, like, for the launch roster, one of the biggest percentages of new characters. I think it was almost a third of the cast of like 22 characters is returning. Is new. So I could see them maybe doing like, here's a classic character, like here's one of the World Warriors, and then here's a new person, you know? I could see that being a possibility, like something to like kind of hype people up. Maybe the old characters have some kind of relationship to a new character or something like that, and they want to that would be sick. Dude, fighting games need to bring back the freaking like rivals thing that Cross Tekken had. Cross Tekken had this thing where like every character, all the characters got paired up for each like franchise. It would be like Ken and Ryu, and then they would have like a rival duo or something like. It was like, was it Jin and I don't remember who I don't know who the rivals were, but the idea is so cool. I love the excuse me. I love the idea of like characters having like rivalries between them, or just some kind of a relationship or something like that, just to make the cast feel kind of interconnected. A lot of like the most enjoyable parts of like fighting games from like a story perspective is honestly just like the characterization. Like when fighting games try to tell stories, they often end up not coming out that well, but just when you get these little things about like, oh, these characters have like this voice line, unique voice lines, or a unique intro, like Arxis used to do a bunch in like the older Guilty Gear games pre-Exerd. Like that shit is so cool. Like when you oh my god, one of the great things about playing Slayer is in Plus R is when you get when you face off against an Order Soul player, because they have the sickest like unique special intro where they like fly in from opposing sides of the screen and like their fists clash, and then they just do this like whole they have this basically little choreographed battle that takes place, or it's like in like 5 seconds, where like Slayer's teleporting and dodging like these huge gun flames from like Order Soul, and like then they get into like round start positions and like Slayer fixes his tie and Soul does his little like thumbs down thing with his back to the. It's so fucking badass. It's so cool. God, I wish developers put that in more games. It's so good. Anyway, so at least one character reveal, maybe two, and I think there's a decent chance at least that we could get an announcement for a beta, closed or open. I couldn't say, but I think Capcom is really, I think they want to lean into the good PR the game has. Like, some people have their doubts. Some people are like, I don't really like what I've seen so far, but they're in the fighting game community, who are like the core audience that they need to win back, really. And honestly, both honestly, casual and like hardcore. In the fighting game community, at least, there is a big like very positive energy surrounding this game, and it's like really nice actually to just have people like. I remember when Strive was coming out, it was so different that there was this like anxiety about people who were like, there was all this like old versus new thing and all that, because so many people loved Exerd, and it was, Strive is such a different game such a different game, and there was just like this tension, like, oh man, they're really taking a risk, this feels risky. There's none of that with SF6. It's like pure man, I'm so excited. Like, you'll just go down, and if you just look up the they posted the OSTs, or like the themes for all the characters except for Guile so far. And like, first of all, I really like some of them. Jamie's and Ryu's are awesome. People didn't like Ryu's. I was like, what the fuck? It's so groovy. And Jamie's is so much fun. Oh my god. I love how it changes depending on it's like adaptive. It's an adaptive I think they're doing this with all the tracks, but like the songs, the music changes depending on how many rounds, what round you're in. So like if you listen to like just the, I guess, how would you say, the compiled version of the song, like the one that would be on like the soundtrack, you'll hear like, the beginning, all these sections in the middle, and then like, an end or whatever, or a big climax to the end. But in game, those parts are split up, where it'll be like that beginning section where it's a little more low key, is like round one, and then as you get deeper into the match, it progresses and it like changes, kind of like Doom's music would. So like it'll progress and get more like intense the further you get into the round, which is so cool. Excuse me. So I think part of let me finish that tangent. I went on a tangent inside of my tangent. You go to like the comment section of these, and there's so many people just like, man, I'm so hyped for this. This is, there's like this warm, positive energy from so many like casual players or more casual players. It's so nice, and I think that the advantage of a beta, probably open, if you want to appeal to the widest audience, is that you literally just get the game in people's hands and you show them like, this is not fucked up. It's not going to be fucky. It's not going to be fucky at launch. It's going to be solid, People like, there's been a lot of pretty good things from like fighting game like content creators and stuff, and people who have had some hands-on. But obviously, that's just the that's just some people's opinions, right? So getting that into the general player base's hands, I think, and having them like it would be really good for PR, I think. And it would be a great way if there's online, which there almost certainly would be. Also, it'd be a great way to show off your new netcode, your new and improved Marvel Infinite netcode, which yeah, it would you'd come away with multiple, like, people saying, "Oh, the gameplay's good, it looks good, and it plays great online." Like, that's a really good first impression. I can definitely see them doing that. I pretty much expect it. If they didn't do it, I'd be like, maybe later. They're definitely going to do a beta at some point, but this seems like it would be a good time to announce it, because this is going to be the last Evo with Street Fighter V at it. So what better, like, transition, into the new. Other than that, next thing, MK. I think there's going to be a Mortal Kombat 12 teaser or announcement, very similar to Tekken. Again, like they did with 11, they could just do like a full cinematic, no gameplay whatsoever, and just to give you and it's just whatever, 2-3 characters or whatever. I don't know how they want to play it, but I mean, oh my god, is Scorpion and Sub-Zero gonna be in there? I wonder. Like, you can just throw anything with Scorpion and Sub-Zero and just put like literally like a 1-minute fight scene between those two characters. No context, no nothing, with like a song or whatever behind it. They really need to go back to like bring in that like old techno style. I just want the techno back for like a main Mortal. I know the Mortal, like, like, I know that's from the movie and not from the games, but like, geez, like, it's such a part of for how much they lean into the legacy of the series. You'd think that they would at least have like one track that was paying homage to the, like, literally one of the most famous things from the whole franchise is that song. Yeah, you can literally just do like a 1-minute cinematic of Sub-Zero and Scorpion fighting with a cool song behind it, and then just throw like 12 behind it or something like that. like 12, and however they want the logo to be. Like, I like the MK11 logo where like the 11 is part of the letters, but to have like the 12 and then the rest of the logo like fades in, the Mortal Kombat or the MK, whatever. I doubt there's going to be very much beyond that. They're going to do the announcement, the teaser. I think they have to. Or whatever. If it's not MK12, it's going to be their next project. The game is basically... They've been dead silent on the MK11 front. Basically no news for months from what I believe, from what I understand. So they're probably hard at work, maybe getting crunched to get their next thing out. Whether that's MK12, I don't think it's going to be Injustice 3. If it was, it would be like, okay, fine, but I mean, it's just getting a little cyclical. I think it would be neat to just do something sort of different. MK12 would be the safe bet because Mortal Kombat sells so well, and the brand is so strong. I think it would be neat to do some kind of like a... I don't want to say it, but like an MK versus DC like revival or something. Because, I mean, just something like different. You had this pattern of like MK9, Injustice, MK10, or X, whatever. Like Windows X. Injustice 2, MK11. It's like, I think people are like, it would be cool, people would be hyped, but it would be like, oh, another one. I think that's kind of what you want to avoid. I think that's good to avoid, is like, oh, just another one? Okay. If it was like something, just something like spice it up. And I think Ed Boon's been mentioning stuff about like we're thinking about breaking the cycle. And I mean, even from like a developer or an artistic standpoint, that makes a lot of sense to me because like, geez, MK9 came out in what, 2011? It's been about 10 years, and they've basically been committed to this cycle for like 10 years. Imagine doing like the same thing back and forth for like 10 years as like a creative, right? Like you just kind of want to do something a little different. A new concept, new spin on something. You know what I'd love? I would be really interested to see, now that I've kind of trolled my way through the 3D Mortal Kombats. I actually haven't played anything other than Deadly Alliance since I talked about it, because I've just had other stuff to play. But now that I've kind of been exposed to it, I really want them to bring back the weapon stances. I want them to bring back stances. They kind of did that with variations, the variation system in like X and 11, but I'd want to see an MK where they kind of go back and they they sort of redo or take another shot at like the weapon and hand-to-hand styles. Just do like one weapon, one hand-to-hand. You don't need two hand-to-hands like Deadly Alliance or Deception. Just do like one hand-to-hand, one weapon stance. Because I think it's cool. I think like the idea that you kind of like have two different styles for every character, and there's a lot of really interesting designs I think you can do with that. Like having a character have certain strengths in one thing and weaknesses in another. Having a character like that's like tied specifically to like maybe a mechanic they have or something like that. Maybe doing something totally different, like, oh, instead of like taking out a weapon, this character has some kind of like weird transformation they do for their weapon stance. Like that would be cool. Or I don't know. I think there's a lot of interesting things you could do per character to with that system. That's what I would like to see in a future Mortal Kombat. I know that wasn't a question, but hey, if we're talking about MK12, that's what I'm predicting is going to be their Evo announcement. Or something Mortal Kombat related, but not a direct numbered sequel. Not sure. On the Guilty Gear side, almost guaranteed, I'd freaking hope that they're going to reveal the first character of Season 2. Maybe two characters, who knows, because it's been a minute since Strive has had anything announced, which is weird, because it felt like Season 1 had pretty regular content updates, for at least for a fighting game. Pretty regular, and it's been a little while with season 2 and the Season 2 changes and all that. And the story mode, and no word on new characters, even though they've had like at least 3 opportunities to drop a trailer, and they just haven't, which is weird because almost everyone is convinced, I'm convinced too, that the first character is going to be Sin. Number 1, he's a fan favorite, he's from Exerd, he's pretty popular, he's very approachable gameplay style. Also, he's just in the Season 2 story mode. They have like a new design with a full like model and everything. Like he's made. I don't know how much of like a moveset or something there would be, but yeah, I feel like he needs like one more little piece on him. Just like something like hanging off his shoulder or something like that. I think that the tank top is just like, it's neat, but it's a little too sparse, I feel like, for Guilty Gear. He's not over-designed enough for Guilty Gear. I hope they just add a little something to him. Like a little shoulder cape or something. That might be fun. So yeah, it's like, okay, well, I assumed the Sin announcement was going to come pretty soon after the Season 2 like story mode and everything dropped. Did not. Technically, I guess it wasn't the Season 2 story, it was the Season 1 story. The another story thing with Ramlethal and Faust and Delilah and all that. So maybe there's something else planned for season 2, but yeah. Absolutely setting him up to be the first character, and it would be having Sin first up would be a great it would be a good way to kick off season 2 with just like a pretty well liked character. And then you can kind of do the introduce some weirdos, bring Slayer back. Yeah. I feel like if there's any place to do it, it would be Evo. I don't see why they wouldn't do it anywhere else. You know? Other than that, I hope something else comes with the Sin announcement, because, yeah, the game hasn't gotten a whole lot. At least, like, have a minor balance patch or something like that. I don't know. Add a new little feature. Add a new little game mode or something like that. Bring back the MOM mode where you get the coins and stuff. That stuff was fun. Like, bring back those modes. Why don't you have those modes? God. Yeah, I would be kind of disappointed if it was literally just a character. I'd be cool. Like, it'd be like, oh, it's Sin. Sin's back. But yeah, I'd hope there'd be something else. Skullgirls, almost certainly going to be a character reveal for, I believe, the last Season 1 character. I was rooting for Brain Drain because I think he's cool. I think he has a cool design, and I would like to see what his moveset would look like. Nothing else to say on the Skullgirls front. Grand Blue, same thing, character reveal. I'm pretty sure. Grand Blue is so weird. I feel like it's this like weird zombie game because it released... got some DLC, and I was like, alright, it's pretty much done now, right? And then it just kept getting characters, and I was like, it's still getting DLC? And the weird thing is that, like, it's one of the games that just completely got left behind because of COVID. I remember being in my fucking senior year, what was it? AP Gov, my government class, talking to a friend who was into Grand Blue, the mobile game, about Grand Blue Versus, which had just come out. This game's been getting support for what feels like so long for a game that has like has been totally left behind because it had delay-based netcode right before the pandemic, where no one could meet up in person. Yeah, so I'm guessing, like, why not? They just seem to just keep adding characters to this game. Type Lumina is a weird one. Because they literally just announced 2 characters, which I'm going to talk about later. But it's like a week before Evo. So is there something else coming to the game? I don't know. It's kind of an awkward time to reveal it, unless they had something else planned. Okay. And for fighters, I'm expecting nothing. I don't know. Maybe a sequel? Who knows? Depends on how... If Bandai Namco wants to fund a sequel. I think there totally could be a sequel. I think it would be weird if there wasn't, actually. Because Fighters was so big. Yeah. I wouldn't expect anything because Bandai Namco is like weird with Fighters, and it's like, oh, you're going to get a new DLC character just kind of randomly. Not as part of a season or anything. She's just like a weird one-off. Also becomes the best character in the game. Has to get banned from every tournament. Yeah, it's pretty much my predictions for Evo. I'll be following along with it, and I will definitely be talking about it next week. But maybe the week after that. Next week, actually. After the tournament. So, look forward to that. Yeah. I don't know anything about Type Lumina, so I can't say what characters... Grand Blue, so I can't say what characters would get revealed. For SF6, I have no idea what they're going to do. I would expect Cammy or Ken would be a returning character. Maybe both. Or maybe one and a new character. That would be my prediction. I think Ken maybe the most likely one. Yeah. Okay, well, next question. From Gus, our friend Gus. Hey T, got a couple questions about your Mega Man videos. How did you discover the existence of this comic? How it was to do research about it? On the first video, I know you learned about the cangaceiros. What are your thoughts on what you saw of the Brazilian culture during the research? I also wanted to say that I had so much fun reading and translating all that stuff. My brother and I had a good time watching your videos. Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much to Gus for being so willing to help out with translating that thing. So how did I discover the existence of the comic? Novas Aventuras de Mega Man is one of those things. So I've been I've been into Mega Man since I was like a little kid, since I was really young, like at least 9 or something, 8 or 9. I just always thought it was really cool. Actually, the Ego Raptor, the sequelitis on Mega Man versus Mega Man X was like one of the things that made me super passionate about game design and like video games and stuff like that. That was like a big kind of influential video for me to watch. So Mega Man has always kind of been very closely tied to my love for video games. And when I get into something, I like to get into it. So there is so much obscure, weird Mega Man stuff, games and spin-offs and all sorts of stuff that you've never heard of. Like, you've never heard of. Do you know who the fuck Rockman Dark is? Yeah, no, you didn't. So, Novas Aventuras de Mega Man is one of those things that has just kind of... I've just known about it for years. Like, weird Mega Man things, you know? Or like, oh, here was this weird... It's just one of those things that, like, people who are really into it in the community know about. And it's like, oh, yeah, there was this weird Brazilian Mega Man comic that was officially licensed, and it was full of, like, violence, and swearing, and, like tons of, like, nudity and stuff like that. And it's just one of those things I've just always known about. It's kind of infamous in the community. It doesn't get referenced a whole ton, but if you've been into Mega Man for a while, you've probably come across it at some point. It's just kind of like a fun fact. Like, do you know this thing exists? How was it to do research about it? On the first video, okay, so how was it to do research? Basically, the process that I went about for it was I found scans of the comic, translated, and then I figured, like, you know, this would be really fun to do like a live reading of. I was actually inspired by a channel called Soot House, SOOT House, who unfortunately don't upload videos anymore. They haven't for a while. But God, they were so fucking funny. Soot House was basically, it was a bunch of, like, British guys and one girl, and they would get into, like, a Discord call, and then they would have some kind of, like, topic or whatever, or theme, like, weird Yahoo Answers posts, you know? Something like that. And then they would like, pass screenshots to each other and, like, have them, like, read it aloud, or like weird, you know, weird Tinder text or something. They would, like, voice them, and it was all edited in a way that was very similar to, like, the way that I edited the reading, like our reading of it, with, like, the text, the different colored text popping up on screen. God, and they were so fucking funny. Like, go check out their backlog. And then I remember one day just thinking, man, there hasn't been a Soot House video in a while. And I remember going to their channel, seeing that their last video was like 8 months or like a year ago. And I was like, what happened? And then I went to their last video, and I looked at the comments, and I basically found out through the comments that they just kind of dropped the project and dropped the channel. totally like out of the blue. Like, they had merch and everything. They just dropped everything, and I don't know why. It seemed like it was mutual. I'm not sure. But one of the guys is actually now, like, the main guy who was kind of in charge of the channel. His name was Wilbur. He is now, like, a Minecraft YouTuber who, like, hangs out with Dream and stuff. Wilbur Soot. So, like, it's like, oh, okay. All right, then. I'm not interested in that content, so I was just really bummed that, like, Soot House was gone, and I was like, it would be really fun to, like, do a Soot House throwback reading this comic. So I got some people together from our friend circle. I wanted to get more people, but unfortunately it was just, like, people had, like, personal things that meant that they couldn't go. Like, someone got sick, people had different reasons why they just couldn't be there, and I kind of had to get it done within a certain time frame. So it just ended up being me, Cat, and Shrew, who you can see on twitch.tv/Shrew made it. Yeah, and that was, so we read through it. I held off doing, like, in-depth research until the reading was done, because I didn't want any, like, to be I wanted to get, like, genuine, like, reactions from myself to the content of the comic, and I didn't want to potentially, like, spoil myself on anything by, like, researching something like, oh, what was this scene or something like that, and I'm like, well, now I know what that scene was. Like, I really went into this with, like, I remember vague things. I remember that, like, Roll's supposed to be, like, naked all the time, and it's, like, violent or something. And I did, like, some very preliminary research about, like, how Peixoto and Pereira, like, didn't play any Mega Man games. That was pretty much the most that I knew, and I decided to, like, hold off for my own, like, enjoy, to get, like, more genuine reactions out of myself, and I think it worked out really well. And then Will joined us later on in the reading, but yeah. Pretty much the research was mostly just, I don't know, it's how I usually do my research. I find as much as I can about, like, resources about it. I look up the people who were involved to see if they maybe were interviewed about it, said anything about it, or were just tangentially in, like, any articles where they were mentioned. I collect that into, like, a document with, like, links and everything. Excuse me. Then I just write out, like, bullet point notes from what I learned. And I wanted to, like, go through the whole comic, so a lot of my notes were actually just about what goes on in the comic and how I wanted to, like, explain it. And then I did, like, the Where Are They Now thing for part 2, which was just a lot of Googling. It's just a lot of Googling and translating and stuff like that. I have like, a translator add-on for Firefox, so a little easier to figure out. There were a few people I think I might have missed who had, like, careers after the comic, but yeah, that was pretty much my research. I don't know, it's just, researching is honestly just, like, are you willing? There's nothing, like, that hard about it in most cases. It's usually just, like, how much time are you willing to spend Googling something and taking notes? It's really just a time investment and having, like, a decent understanding of how to, like, what keywords to search up. So, you know, I just searched when I was doing the Where Are They Now, I just search up, like, their name, see if anything came up, nothing that I could identify, then, like, Nuevas Aventuras de Mega Man, I'd maybe find something, I'd see, like, you know, put their name and then, like, artist, just see what you find, see if it's the same person. Sometimes they have, like, really similar spellings of their name, and I'm like, that's probably the same guy, and they're an artist, like, the likelihood is kind of high, especially if it's kind of an interesting name. So, like, yeah, I don't know. The most intensive part of it was honestly just taking notes on the whole comic, because there's so much shit you have to keep track of, because it just, it reads so weirdly, because stuff just gets introduced and dropped, and when you're done with it, it's so easy to forget all these little plot threads that just like completely fell out of the comic, like without any resolution. It's also a very confusing comic to read because it's weird because Pereira's writing is super fucking weird. It's super like no, I don't want to say it's unhinged. It's weird. It's wacky. But it's actually fairly straightforward and easy to understand. Like those first 5 issues are not that confusing. They're just weird. Besides like the role thing, it's like, okay, well, you know, there's a ton of like weird contradictions later on, but that was like with Tussetto when Tussetto was writing. Like if Pereira kept writing the comic, maybe that whole rollback story might have been more consistent or whatever, but Tussetto was so fucking crazy. He has such an unhinged writing style. And I was thinking about this on the bus the other day. I realized what it was is that like he has this thing about how he really feels like being vague is cool. But it actually just ends up being confusing because he'll like bring up these characters and they'll like meet and it'll be all it'll be framed dramatically and the characters will say something like, brother, we meet at long last, and then it cuts to a different scene, like and like you can do that a few times if you like build it up, or more importantly if you explain who the fuck these characters are and how they know each other, but he does it so often that it just completely loses all meaning, and eventually the story just turns into like every character seems to know more than the audience does. Almost every character seems to know more than the audience does, which wouldn't be a big deal if these things were not so important to the plot. Like you can set things up and they're kind of mysterious, but the main like thing that's happening right in front of you is like understandable. Where the comic goes is where it's like there's a fucking big battle happening right now that all the characters are involved in, and you don't know why or who they are or how anything relates to it, and it's incredibly like important and in your face, and you have no clue what's going on. And I think it's because like I don't know, I think he literally just thinks that it's cool to be like mysterious, to imply that these characters have these relationships and backstories, but it just ends up being like nonsense because it isn't balanced with any actual understanding. Like you don't know there's so like little context to like how is the world, like what is the state of the world, is it like is civilization advanced, is it like apocalyptic, is it because we go to that city, we go to Sao Paulo and it's like a completely barren city with like 1 robot in it or 2 robots or whatever, but then like, oh, we're flying over X's house and he lives in like I don't even know where, just like a place with grass, and he lives in like this normal looking little house. Like where is that? And then you go and then it's like Roll's backstory, and there's like a modern day like grimy city, and you're like, okay, so what is the state of the world? How is it like progressed? I don't understand. And then suddenly we're in like this ruined city. It's like, okay, is the world apocalyptic? Is it not? Are some parts of it ruined? Are some parts not? What is going on? Who lives in this world? What is like the current state of things? You just get so little stuff. There's floating cities, like what? There's like, what is it, like slaves in the Amazon, and you're like, where, what, slaves in the, like there's all these references to things that you never see. It's almost like Lord of the Rings, where Tolkien would just like have characters offhandedly mention like important characters or events or things. The difference is that like they were making like historical references, like the same way that, if you were having conversation in real life, you might make you're talking about something important happening in the world, you might make a reference to like a real world like historical event or a political figure, and you both know what it means, but it's not like that's like how Tolkien does it. the way that Tassetto writes it is like, imagine you were like a space alien who didn't know anything about human history or culture, and suddenly like you're seeing like World War II or something like that, or fucking fucking like Ronald Reagan is like a main character and everyone knows who he is and you have no idea who this is. You're like, what the fuck is happening? Yeah. And it's made worse by the fact that there's the revolving door of artists who just draw things completely differently. Like that like weird cave base they're in near the end, like where is that? Where is that supposed to be? Is it outside of a city? Is it right by the city? Like we have what does it look like? Where is it? It's so vague and weird. And then you get like artists who don't even draw backgrounds. Oh, jeez. What are your thoughts on what you saw of the Brazilian culture during the research? Well, growing up where I grew up in a very Hispanic area of Chicago. It's called Rogers Park. Mainly like Mexican. Technically grew up in a Latin Kings neighborhood. But so like the thing about the US is that you kind of just get exposed to, there's so many cultures that you kind of just, you'll absorb things about cultures that you're around, and there's other cultures that you might just completely miss out on and know nothing about. So I don't really know anything about like Brazilian culture. Very little, honestly. I don't know, like you're green and you can like use electricity is about as much as I know. So like I gotta be honest. Besides like soccer, I don't know shit about Brazil. I'm gonna be in Sao Paulo with the... No, wait, Rio has the Jesus statue. I'm so dumb. I'm so dumb. And he had that bird movie, Rio. That's like that's the extent of my knowledge of Brazil. I didn't really grow up around Brazilians or Brazilian culture, so a lot of it was just new to me. And the comic is actually interesting because there's so many little references thrown into just Brazilian stuff that I just kind of got like, I don't know, like it's obviously very different from taking like a Brazilian history class, right? Like I'm not learning about Brazilian like history and wars and government and migration and stuff like that. Like I don't know any of that, but it's like, oh, there's like what is it? I learned what like Monica's gang was, and I was like, oh, okay. There's like a bunch of reference. I like left out. There's a bunch of points where they make a bunch like some references to things like what was it? Excuse me. Like household appliances and things like that. I don't remember what the brand name was, but just saying like, oh, they made a reference to like a popular household appliance brand in Brazil, or oh, they make that reference to like HQ Mix, which is like a comics award, I think. Just like all these like little references that you get out of just like a, I don't know, like a just a product of the country. I don't know how else to describe it. You know, like if you watch something from the US, you're going to be like, oh, I guess they have that, or they mention a brand thing. And you're just like, oh, okay. So it's like, the most like historical thing probably was the Conquistadors, which was really cool to learn about. I thought that whole thing was super, super cool. And I'm surprised I've actually never heard of it. Brazil needs to export its culture more. You guys gotta export your culture more. It's the soft power. That's why everyone knows what cowboys are. Because of... Well, honestly, more so because of, like, movies made by Italians who had never been into America, who, like, were like, yeah, I kind of know what cowboys are. Dude, spaghetti westerns are so funny because it's like sp- spaghetti westerns are like the American. It's like the inverse of like the Leet Street Boys, or like any American thing that was like riffing on Japanese culture. Like, oh, we get Japanese culture. We watch anime. Where it's like spaghetti westerns was made by like, well, first of all, it was made by Italian guys who thought that they saw like images of cowboys and they had like a vague idea of what they are and what they looked like, and like desperados and all that stuff, and they had this vague idea of this culture and this time period like 100 years after it happened, and they were like, yeah, I'll fucking write a script about that, which is like so funny. And in a funny way, that those completely disconnected like interpretations of like cowboys have become like the predominant like like mythologized version of the like American cowboy in America. Like that's what people think of is the fucking spaghetti western type cowboys, which is so funny. So like the Congacero thing is legitimately super cool, and I'm there has to be like a bunch of movies or TV series or tons of like stories about that, because like it's too interesting and it's like a real historical thing, and there's like such an easily like identifiable conflict going on, and there's like an underdog. Like there's too many good stories. I feel like if you fucking did like I feel like there's audiences outside of Brazil could find that shit really cool. Yeah, so but mainly the things that I just saw of like Brazilian culture was I feel like I'm at least cogent enough to separate Pereira and like some of Peixoto's like very like nationalist ranting from like the Brazilian people. Someone actually left a very lengthy comment about, you know, things of sort of like underlying feelings in Brazil, describing feelings of like feeling inferior to other cultures. And honestly, like I can't say I get it and that I've like experienced it, but I can definitely imagine that. I can totally see like resentment building up for other cultures and things like that. But you know, I get from in a sense like where they were coming from with that kind of thing, but I mean, I think like blaming other countries for just being too good at exporting their culture is like, I feel like you should be more I feel like instead, if you wanted to change something, you could just be more critical of your own whatever powers that be in your country. Because like it's like, what do you think it's going to accomplish? Oh, do you think all the like do you think you think Marvel and DC are going to be like, oh, man, you know, these guys in Brazil, they're really tired of us, you know? Because we're just going to stop printing comics over there. Like, no, they're just going to keep doing it as long as there's money. And then if Brazilian comics that appeal to the same market get popular, it's like, oh shit, now they have to make that. Now they have like some competition or something like that. Like you're the only guys who are going to like force out that thing. Also, his whole shtick about like blaming Peixoto's thing about blaming the Brazilian audiences for not buying not buying our stupid Mega Man comic book. It was so like oh god, like come on. Like have a little self-awareness to be like, okay, I understand like our art's not the greatest, our story's kind of weird, we're just trying our best. Like just focus on the fucking positives, and I think you'd garner so much goodwill. Just focus on the positives, you know. And then I'm not entirely sure how the magazine ended, but the comic just got canceled. I don't know why. Apparently, they only started getting paid in like the last 4 issues or 5 issues or something like that. So I have no clue what happened. Yeah. No, I mean, what was he talking about? Yeah, so I can separate like what they were saying from the culture or whatever, or the regular old Brazilian person. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty much like culture's cool. I like seeing little cultural references. I just like learning stuff, little tidbits here and there, and just consuming something from another culture is like a pretty fun way to just get lots of little references. Like, how many people know like a dozen or so odd phrases in Japanese because they watch like anime or VTubers? Like, I'm one of them. Before I even started studying Japanese, I knew so many like little phrases from like VTubers and stuff like that. Like, that stuff's fun. It's like fun to hear about like other people's experiences and stuff like that. It's so easy to get like caught in a bubble where you're just not. You're like, oh, you guys like in Japan, they all the Japan has like maybe one imported brand of chips. All the like 99% of their chips are like they're potato chips are like Japanese, grown from like Japanese potatoes and like Japanese exclusive. Like, oh, and you know what the fuck? Their like national flavor of potato chips is pizza. You're like, really? Pizza? Interesting. And like, that's weird. I mean, I like pizza chips, I'm gonna be honest. I love pizza chips. But it's like interesting that it's pizza chips in America is like kind of like, oh, fun. I wasn't expecting that on the shelves every day. As opposed to like our core thing. If you want to see some fun stuff about culture, there's a great YouTuber named JJ McCullough or McCullough. I don't know how it's pronounced. He's like a Canadian guy, and he just does these fun little videos about like Canadian, like mainly like North American culture. So he did one on like, oh, why are like North American symbols for toys so like old timey, and it's all like a nutcracker and like a wooden train and like a rocking horse or something like that. And he did one on like why there's like 4 main chip flavors in America: the like plain, sour cream and onion, salt and vinegar, and barbecue. Like, why are those our 4 main flavors? And there's like a neat, interesting little history to that. Because apparently, one of them, I think, remember at least the barbecue one was weird because it was like chip manufacturers used to sell potato chips like just plain, and then you would take, because barbecuing got so popular in the 50s, and they started selling chips as like a side snack. And the idea was that people would make their own like barbecue sauces, and then they would use that as a dip for the chips, like all the leftover barbecue sauce that they didn't put on like their meats. And then around the time of like, no, that was a different thing. Like, so eventually they just started, they're like, oh, let's make it let's optimize for laziness, as is the American way, and just put the barbecue flavoring on the chip from the beginning. And then I think the sour cream and onion one started like kind of similarly, where like sour cream and onion soup, or cream and onion soup, got really popular. And then in like World War II, dehydrated foods got really popular. So like dehydrated soup or something, you put some water in it and get yourself soup. And so that flavor just became super dominant. And they were like, hey, we have this like basically dehydrated sour, like cream and onion flavor, basically. Why don't we put it on chips? And they're like, oh, it's not too bad. Apparently potato chips were made as an accident. I think it was like, there was like this one restaurant, I think it was in the US, where they were like cooking potatoes, and like they fucked up the potatoes. They were trying to make like scallop potatoes or something like that. They ended up overcooking them. And they were like, oh shit, we overcooked the potatoes. Like, what do we do? Like, it's all like dried up and like brittle and shit. Oh, we fucked him up. And then they had one. They were like, yeah, it's pretty edible. That's not bad. It's kind of fun. You're a little crunchy. Yeah. Anyway, what the fuck was I gonna... We're an hour in. There's other shit I want to talk about. So if you've been... Funny little thing happened recently in the world of NieR Automata, which is a great game that you should go play. So this whole thing kicked off when a user submitted... he basically asked a question on the NieR subreddit, and he said, hey, my friend says that he can't find the church. What's he doing wrong? Or, like, how do you find it? Excuse me. People said, what do you mean? There's no church in NieR. Like, there's no, like, church, as far as I recall, there's no, like, actual, there's, like, that weird little robot cult area, but, there's no, like, church, kind of like he was saying. No one could, no, people were asking him to clarify, and he goes, oh, the church area that's like behind a wall in this one area. People were like, what are you talking about? That's not in the game. And so he uploaded a video of him in this one section, the copied city, where he runs up to a wall and a little prompt pops up to, like, interact, and he opens a door that was in the wall, and he starts walking down this hallway behind the door, and there's this very... the copied city is all, like, the whole look of it is it's all just, like, pure white, and just, like, very kind of, like, blocky geometry and stuff like that. So people were like... So he's, like, going down, and there's, like, this very complex geometry with, like, winding hallways, and eventually he comes out to this little cathedral church. It's like fully modeled and everything, and still in like the pure white untextured look, but like very intricate with like lighting effects and everything. And people were going, what the fuck? This is not in the game, or at least no one had seen it before. And the possibility of it being a mod was ruled out because as far as anyone knew, it's not possible to mod NieR. Like, you just can't mod the game yet. So but you can data mine it, and you can find, you can data mine like every single room in the game, but this one didn't show up. So immediately all these theories start going about, like, was it... Because no one's found this before. This is the only guy who's ever found this, that we know of. So, like, is this... This has to be, like, some kind of a secret that has some incredibly specific trigger in the game. And the way the chapel or the church is, like... It can't. It's not like a normal room in the game because it doesn't exist in the data mines. You can't find it, which means that it can't be like an actual singular room, like piece. It actually would have to be... The theory was that it would have to be like multiple different pieces of like level geometry pulled together the instant that the door is accessed. Like, the room is basically spawned in and put together from multiple pieces, which is why it doesn't show up if you data mine the game. And people were obviously calling it, like, this seems like a hoax, because the original poster was, like, being really vague and, like, not answering a lot of questions. But there was also that thing about, there's a possibility, like, maybe they literally just don't know any better. Maybe they literally just don't know any better, and they're just not being helpful because of whatever reason. Like, they just don't know. And again, it's like, well, no one can mod the game, so, like, what's going on? So, and then Yoko Taro, the game's director, writer, he made some, like, funny little pass or something where he goes, like, oh, interesting. Like, he didn't say anything about it, and it's like, oh, what the fuck? Oh my god, did Yoko Taro put this in? Is he a little mischief maker? Because it totally feels like something he would do. Totally feels like he would put something in that was so obscure because he just thought it would be funny. So, like, finally there's like a live stream from, I think, the person who uploaded it. And at the they do it, they recreate it, they find the church again, and at the very end they reveal the whole thing was a hoax. It was in fact a hoax. Sort of, basically. It was basically like, the reveal was also coupled with the fact that they were part of a group that had figured out how to mod NieR. So now NieR Automata is like open to mods and everything, and like you can import models and everything. So that was like a really cool reveal. And their idea was like, oh, we want to like, let's show off these new capabilities we have to like add whole rooms and interactable objects like doors and things like that. They're actually like built into the original like level geometry. And so they came up with this idea to basically create this mystery around this church, and then like lead people on and get people talking about what this was. And then at the end they were going to reveal, oh, it was I guess a prank or a hoax or something, and now we can. This was all done with mods. Guess what? Mods are possible. It was going to be all cool. I thought that was actually really cool. I was very curious. I was kind of chomping at the bit to figure out what happened. I just thought it was super neat. So when I found out about that, I was like, oh, all right, neat. Neat to know that's what that was. And so there was like this big post on like IGN, like, NieR Automata's huge internet mystery was a beautiful, impressive hoax. And it's a fun little article just going over what happened and the reveal and everything. And I went down to the comments. I could not believe. I'm going to read you some comments. So someone says, like, the people who did this led people on. And when they told people the truth, they acted like celebs winning an award. This was a stunt done for clout by people pretending to be the actual developer. That's pretty childish and self-aggrandizing. Reminds me of the guy in the VR booth in Minority Report telling all of his NPC coworkers, "No, you're great." Dude. So when he says acting like celebrities, what happened was they had like a little slideshow where they said, thank you, here's the people who worked on it. Like, the map was designed by this guy. The Blender tools were developed by this guy. The scripting tools were developed by this guy. Hey, we love this game. Thank you for taking part in this fun little mystery we made. And then specifically saying also we weren't trying to impersonate Yoko Taro. I think that was like a weird little wrinkle that people thought it was Yoko Taro. It wasn't. That was just like a weird thing that people got carried away with. And this guy's like, they act like celebrities. And then someone replies, there is something inherently fun and exciting in discovering a secret. But to try and create that and trick people is despicable. Just say, look what I did. It would have been an accomplishment on its own, not this BS way. Like, they're so fucking hurt by the fact that there was like a little like week-long little fun mystery event that the community had, and then they got a fun little surprise. What a waste. Here's another one. What a waste of life. It's not about some beginnings of a beautiful mod community. It's about getting clicks and traffic, and ultimately, money. It was fairly obvious to me that this was a mod. The people who made it purposefully led people on and were being entirely too cryptic about how they got to the hidden area. It's cool, but also pretty disingenuous of them. Like, what's with this self-aggrandizing thing? I don't see, like, what the fuck. And they said, like, sorry for the anticlimactic ending. And they're gonna release the mod that they made. Like, I don't fucking understand, like, what this thing about, like, we did a cool thing. We're gonna do a little fun community event. And then, show it off and give everyone the tools to do it. To, like, play with this stuff. Jesus. What the fuck? Why are you so mad about this? This was so cool. I realize that there's like a this has to be a minority of people. Let's look on Twitter. Let's see what people were saying about the church. Let's see what people were saying about the church. This was like so baffling to me. How you could think that this was like, oh my, fuck them, dude. The church wasn't real. Fuck you. Fuck you, dude. Dude, fuck. Like, what? What are you so upset about? Like, yeah, it was just, I don't know, like, it was fun. Do you guys not like mysteries? Anyway, yeah, it doesn't seem like people were actually that upset. But, yeah, what else do we want to talk about? That was fun. Go play NieR Automata. It's gonna get modding tools soon. Okay, Neco Arc. Jesus. So I woke up today, I rolled over, and I said, holy shit. She's back. So Multi-Blood Type Lumina had 2 more characters revealed. The first one was Neco Arc. If you don't know who Neco Arc is, the main character of Multi-Blood is this girl called Arcwade. And there's like a gag joke version of her who is a cat named Neco Arc. And it's like a little cat wearing her clothes and everything. And she goes, Burunya. And it's a stupid fucking meme that somehow escaped the Multi-Blood community when Type Lumina was coming out. Burunya. I still find Neco Arc funny. So Neco Arc was, I should mention, Neco Arc was actually included in previous Multi-Blood games because there are not a lot of Tsukihime characters to pull from, which is why there's so many like alternate versions of characters in that game. And so they were like, fuck it, put in the joke cat character. And so the Multi-Blood community is honestly probably bigger than the Tsukihime community outside of Japan. So people mostly knew Neco Arc from Melty. Excuse me. And when Type Lumina was coming out and getting trailers and everything, the big meme was like, add Neco Arc, add Neco Arc. And we were like, they're not going to add Neco Arc. You can't add like a stupid joke character in today's day and age with the esports. Like I said, they're not going to be competitive. And then they were like, yeah, fuck it, here's Neco Arc. And I'm like, oh, it's fun. It's fun. I am happy. I'm honest. Some people are dreading it. I'm happy. I'm honestly happy. I think it's going to be funny. Burunya. Her little fucking face is so funny to me. And the other character was Mash. Mash Kyrielite, I think. She's another crossover character from Fate, the mobile game. There's a bunch of porn of her. You've seen her. She's the purple hair with the glasses, and she has the battle outfit with the big cross shield. And yeah, so she's coming to fate. Melty Type Lumina. They already had a Saber, so it's just another one for the pile, because we're running out of Tsukihime characters already, so we gotta add the Gag Cat character and a crossover character from another Type Moon property. Yeah, I don't know. There's not a whole lot to say about them specifically. They got 20-second trailers. The good news is they're almost certainly going to be free, which is neat. And that kind of brings me to the other topic I want to talk about Type Lumina, because I was literally just revisiting Type Lumina 2 days ago. Weirdest timing. Because I figured, hey, I haven't really touched the game since launch, because I knew there were some matchmaking problems, stuff like that. Haven't really touched it, and kind of forgot about it for a while until, I don't know, just randomly last night, or 2 nights ago, I was taking a walk, and I was like, yeah, they released those free characters for Melty Blood. Like, all the DLC characters are actually just free. Why don't I go check it out? So I went home, went on Steam. They have a god-awful process of actually acquiring the DLC. So, like, yeah, it's free, but what you need to do is... So, like, there's 4 characters, right? There's 4 characters out right now for DLC. So, like, you have to go to Steam. There's no way to do this from like, in-game. You have to go to the Steam store. You have to scroll down to the DLC section. And the way that they outline... The way that they format, the way like the Steam page is structured, like the DLC section is just a gigantic list of tiny little items. And Melty Blood has like a lot of DLC, because I'm pretty sure like every character in the game has their own announcer pack, which does cost money, and like one other thing or something like that. So there's like there's like 23 different pieces of DLC. And I have to like scan down the list for where the actual like playable character ones are. And once you find it, you can't like add to cart or anything. You have to click like play now, because that's how Steam handles free things, is that you have to click like play now and then start the game up, and then you'll have them. In order to download every character, I had to download them, open the game, close the game, and then download the next one. So I gotta like wait for all this shit to load, and then check to like make sure I got the character, and then go close the game. Also, there's no quit button that I can find from inside the game's menus. You just have to go to like the Steam launcher and just like click stop, which is dumb. And then you just do that 4 times in a row separately for every character. Why would you do it like this? Why would you do it like this? But once I got all of them, I went into the game, went into training mode, played around with them. And you know what? I had some fun. I remembered how fun this game actually feels. If there's one thing I don't like, it's how mashy the game feels. And it really comes down... When I say mashy, I mean it's the auto combo system. I still don't like the fact that... I think I was like kind of hesitant on it when I first talked about it when it launched, but it's solidified into like an actual dislike. I don't like how every single normal auto combos. I really dislike it. How if you just press like C, you'll get like a full auto combo. I don't like that. I'm fine with it if it was just lights, right? Like just have it lights be like that your auto combo button. The current way they have it in a weird way, it feels like it's taking like control of the character away from me, because I feel like I don't have full control of when my character is doing the attack that I want. Like if I like double tap to maybe like just help the timing on a combo or something, like double tap like 5B or something, I might just start an auto combo on accident, and kind of annoying, and I feel like I'm doing things and I don't like know what my character is doing, which is kind of annoying. Maybe it's just an incentive to only like get better execution, so that you won't accidentally start doing auto combos all the time. But excuse me. Yeah, and it's so funny because I was going through like combo trials for some of the characters, and I was like, man, so many of these are like you do like a little setup and then you just mash one button. It's so funny, and the game just combos for you. I did have fun. So So the characters are, who the fuck did they add? Who's like the first character they added? Was it Alco? It's like Alco, Powered CL. I legit can't remember. One of them was a guy named Mario, which I thought was funny. Dead Apostle Noel. God, that design is fucking garish as hell. I really don't like how Dead Apostle Noel looks. I think the design looks really bad. But whatever. In a weird way, I like Powered CL's design in this game more than the previous one, just because I don't like tattoos. But I actually ended up, Mario was kind of cool. I was expecting him to be more of like a puppet character, but he's actually just kind of reminds me of who is it? Relius. He reminds me of Relius from BlazBlue, where he's got like he's like this little boy with like these string like marionette things on his fingers that he like uses to like whip around and do stuff and like swing around. And he has these like nuns who like back him up. He's got like he's got one that's always around him, and then he's got two that can come in from off screen for different like special moves and stuff. And he actually ends up more like using them to just like establish screen control, because like there's one, he has a move where he can like make a nun like jump in and then she'll like throw something or do a little swing. And then he's using them for like screen control, using them for like setup, Oki, and things like that. I played a little bit against a CPU of him, and God, that shit was annoying. You really gotta learn how to play against that. Let's see, who else? Dead Apostle Noel, just not a character for me. She's kind of like, she had a lot of projectiles and stuff, just wasn't that into it. Alco was actually kind of funny. Her air throw has so many frames of animation. Like when she like spins around to throw you, it's like, it looks like a 3D model. It's like insane. Alco's funny. I would never cared about Alco because I just thought her design was so boring, which people were like, that's the point. And I'm like, yeah, but like, does it have to be that plain? Does it have to be that plain? What did endear her to me way more was, so if you don't know, Alco's deal is that she's just a super powerful, like, I don't know what she's like, a sorcerer, magic user, some fucking type, like, Tsukihime nerd is going to correct me in the comments. I can already hear you typing. And she dresses super plainly. Her whole design is just a white t-shirt and jeans. But the kind of gag, I guess, is that she's actually, like, incredibly powerful, and she shoots, like, giant lasers out of her fingers. So she has this voice line that I thought was the funniest thing. I was just checking out, like, her moves and all that. One of her, like, moves when she shoots her laser, she goes, pew pew! I thought that was so funny. She's, pew pew! I, like, had to do it a few more times. I'd, like, cycle through some of her voice lines before I heard it again. Pew pew! That was so funny. I like that character way more now that I heard her go pew pew. Pew pew! The character that I actually landed on, who I might just, like, play in the future if I play this game more, was Powered CL. The characters that I liked in like, when I played a little bit of Actress Again Current Code was, Is her name Lynn? Lynn? Yeah, Lynn and... What the fuck is her name? Reesbiff? Reesbife? I remember people call her roast beef. Just because those characters had like big normals, kind of easy combos and stuff like that. Powered CL has... She got those big normals. She's got this giant gun and like a chain whip. And like Rekkas and stuff. I mean, every character has fucking... Dude, I opened up Powered CL's move list and I saw how many Rekkas she had and I was like, this is a Melty Blood character. Melty Blood... Dude, the fucking designers on Melty Blood... They saw like... They saw like why can't I remember the Bruce Lee guy's name? Lei Feng? Wait, what is his name? Why is his name escaping me? Fei Long! Okay. Fuck, the joke's gone. The joke's dead now. The Melty designers saw Fei Long and they were like, Dude, this is our whole thing now. It's all Rekkas. We just make characters with Rekkas. Like I get like why, like I guess visually Melty Blood characters, like they want them to have these big complicated strings of normal or special moves and all that, like they think that's cool, but yeah, it's a lot. And Powered CL's Rekkas are really overwhelming at first until you realize that they're basically just, she has like a gun one and a chain one, and you can go from one into the other if you want. That's pretty much just the extent of it. You do the first one, then you hit A or B to do a follow-up for one of the other two, and then that kind of locks you into that path to do like the third part of the Rekka. That's pretty much it. One thing I was reminded of is how bad the tutorials in that game are. Like, I remember them being bad, of just like throwing you a big wall of text that was like impossible to digest, and like I forgot like what Blood Heat was and Last Arc and all that shit, and I completely forgot. And how the moon gauge and like moon activation works and all that. Like I had no clue what I was doing. So when I went to go like just do like the mission trials for Powered CL, I was like, oh, let me so they start off with basically just having you do all the characters' moves. You don't even need to land them. Like, you have no idea what the moves are or how they're used, which I feel like is important for a character like... Okay, so Powered CL, right? So a typical Melty Blood combo works like this. This is like a bread and butter. You can literally jump into like any character in Melty Blood and do a combo like this. Anything into usually your 3C, which is like pretty much every character's universal launcher. Usually like a knockdown into a 3C, because Melty Blood has like, you can hit them while they're falling and all that. So you launch them in the air, and then you jump, and you do jump B, jump C, and then you double jump, and then jump, do BC again, and then air throw. And everyone's air throw pretty much gives them like a hard knock. They throw you to the ground, they toss your ass to the ground. That's pretty much like the universal air combo ender. Powered CL has a slight difference. She doesn't quite do that. I think she's meant to be much more ground focused, so her air combos are not incredibly intricate. So the way that she works is that pretty much you can hit like one or two normals in the air, but basically after you hit like those one or two, you'll be auto comboed into an aerial command grab, or basically like an air grab. Excuse me. It'll just automatically make you do an air grab, and her air grab kind of tosses the opponent upwards, actually, and they kind of come down to the ground. And I was looking at that, and I'm like, I feel like there's a way... I was messing around with her in training, and I'm like, has to be a way to like combo off of that. So I kind of tried to figure out if you could do anything. And then I discovered, I was just looking through more of her specials, and I realized that she has an air special. It's called like Shaft Lander or something like that, which is basically an aerial, I don't know if it works exactly like a command grab or a hit grab or whatever, but she swings her chain, like her bladed chain whip to like upwards and diagonal. And if it hits the enemy, she'll kind of whip them around in the air and then throw them to the ground, which is how like every other air throw works in the game. So I immediately realized like, oh, the air grab like launches them upwards because the Shaft Lander like hits above you. It hits like above and in front of you. So I was like, oh, that's why your air grab kind of spins them upward like that, so that you can. Because this special move, this air grab, or this aerial like command grab special, that's what's supposed to be your combo ender in the air. Oh, okay. So I tried it out, and yeah, that's exactly like how you use that. I went and I looked up like her Mizumi page on the Mizumi wiki, and I was like, and they specifically, yeah, this is like an air combo ender. And I was like, great, I have figured that out. And you can even chain two together if you do the kind of like EX version of it in the air after the first one. So I was like, okay, cool. I go into training mode, the trials mode. They do not even tell you like what to use this move for or when. Like this move has such an express purpose of it's like an air combo ender. And they never you don't even have to hit the opponent with it. I'm like, what? How does this help me besides just like how does this help me in a way that the command list doesn't? It's so weird. Like what's even the point? But all this to say, I found powered CL actually quite fun. Big normals, pretty good damage, just I don't know, pretty straightforward, easy to understand character. And chaining her stuff together was fun. Like I started off just doing auto combos into that like air ender, and then I kind of started mixing in like her Rekkas and stuff like that, and experimenting with like she has this weird move where she basically calls like a lightning strike down from the sky. She can do it at like 2 different ranges or 3 different ranges, and it actually hits on the ground, like while they're knocked down, like hard knockdowns. You can get it. But it will like force them to recover and stuff like that. It's like a way to like tack on damage basically at the end of a combo at the expense of I guess giving up a setup or whatever. You sort of give up Oki. You can sort of consider that your Oki, but because once they get hit, they like immediately recover out of it. So and recover standing. So I was kind of like, experiment with like, okay, do like Rekka sequence into like, can you do like into launcher? I don't know. And then into, knockdown, lightning strike. Okay, cool. And she's fun. I haven't gone online yet, but I might later down the line, because I legitimately did have some fun with the game. And maybe I really will hate the shield system. It's like the most controversial thing about this game is the shield system. It's just like one of those blatant rock paper scissors mechanics in any fighting game ever. Like I know fighting games have a lot of rock paper scissors, but the shield is so on the nose. It's hilarious. Oh yeah, so like one of the things, so in Melty, once you get like a full so I was playing some CPU matches to get like a handle on like the way the game feels and the character and all that. And so when you have if you don't know, there's a form in Melty Blood called Heat, which is where like you basically spend all of your meter that you have built up, and you go into like a powered up form called Heat. It's like however much meter you have at the time gets just turned into it turns into like a timer basically that's ticking down. If you have Okay, you have like 3 bars of meter by default, like at the start of the game. If you lose a round, you gain an extra one, so you have up to 4. If you have like 4 bars and you go into heat, it's called blood heat. And if you shield an attack successfully while you're in blood heat, you will instantly hit the opponent with a what's called your last arc, which is like your real ass big ass super. There's like multi has like weird things with supers. Like there's like basically like powered up forms of specials that use a bar. Basically, like every special move in the game has a version of it that's basically like a level 1 super that costs a bar of meter. There's what is it? Don't characters have like some other attack like drive arc or something? It's too many terms. There's too many terms. But you have like your last arc, which is like your big ass super. Oh yeah, you have the one that's like quarter circled forward BC. I forget what that one like does, but it's your like sort of non-cinematic super that I think is like a level 3. Your level 4 is like your last arc. And the last arc, I remember hitting, I was playing against Miyako, like a Miyako CPU. She had maybe 50% health left. I go into blood heat because when you go into it, it kind of also acts as like a burst. So you just like I was getting hit, burst, get her off of me. She jumps in at me. I shield, successfully shield, trigger the last arc like counter attack. And dude, so Power CL's last arc does like 1 hit. It does like 1 big hit. It doesn't do multiple hits or anything. One singular hit. So the entire animation plays out where like pins are down, and then there's like this wall of light that's like ripping across her, and then there's just like it pans out to a city. And this big explosion, and then like the 1 hit comes up, and dude, she was at like 50% life. She almost fucking died off of that. It was like a will it kill. I should have been recording for fucking like will it kill. I was a fucking it was like she was at 50% health. I did like 49%. She was literally like she was on a pixel. I couldn't believe how much damage that did. I was like, holy shit. I guess it makes sense for being like so situational, like so hard to pull off, but yeah, like Jesus Christ, dude. I don't know if it's that hard to pull off, but you know, that was so astounding to me. Oh, I want to mention the best thing about this game is the custom color option. You get to make custom colors for every character. There's like 3 custom color slots that you have to choose, that you can make, and you get to choose. They kind of like split up the palette, the character, into like a couple different areas, and you sort of pick. They have like I think something like 20 base palettes or something like that, or 15 base palettes, that are like the regular, like pre-selectable colors, and then you can basically go in, and then all of the different sections of that get split up, and you can basically choose the colors you like from each like color palette. I don't know if I'm explaining that very great, but it's like, oh, you can get the shoes and the shoulders from color palette 1 because that's like that set. So that's like those sections. They've made those the same one, and you can get the shirt color from palette 10, and you can get the hair color from this other one, and you can like mix and match. It's so fun. Like, it's actually so good. I wish it was in every game. I wish it was in every game ever. I would use it all the time. It's so cool. Yeah, so Type Lumina, kind of fun. Man, so I was getting a little tired. I'll wrap this up kind of quickly. So, yeah, more Warhammer time. So I said, fuck it. I'm done with Winter Assault. The gameplay was just getting kind of like unfun with the campaigns. And I just said, screw it. I'm moving on to the second expansion, Dark Crusade. Dark Crusade. How would I put this? The word I would use is the series of words I would use is blew me away with how much better it is than Winter Assault. Like it's so much better. There's so much more content. The content is so much more substantial. Basically, I would say unless you really want to play everything in Dawn of War, you could skip Winter Assault. It's not okay. Winter Assault, all it does is add one playable faction or one, and it's not even like a brand new one. So the main addition to the game is it makes the Imperial Guard playable. I like the Guard, right? But they show up in the base game's campaign. You can't control them. They're just like NPCs assisting you, basically. They're just like reinforcements, and I think there might have only be like a couple models, like the basic infantry, and I think like the Lehman Russ tank is in there. Like not a lot, but yeah, so like they're fully formed, like they're all fleshed out in Winter Assault, which is cool and everything, but like that's really the only addition. The other thing is that the base game only has one campaign, which is just the Space Marines campaign for the Blood Ravens. But there's 4 races in the game. Marines, Eldar, Chaos Marines, and Orcs. So the other thing that they did with Winter Assault was they just added 2 campaigns with 2 races each. So there's like the Order campaign of like the Guard and the Eldar, and then the Disorder of Chaos and Orcs. So I guess just to like get you acquainted with the Orcs or the mechanics of those factions, which is like fine, but it's like okay, it's there. You could even argue it should have been included in the base game. like as a bundle, honestly. Yeah, it's okay. Dark Crusade is really way better. So first of all, it adds 2 new races. The Necrons, which I already knew. I actually didn't check what each one added, but I could already tell literally just from like the art on the page for the expansion. It added Necrons. But also what I was not expecting, it also added Tau, and I was like, oh, interesting. So you get Necrons and Tau, which are 2 completely new races that play very differently. We have like completely different types of units. They upgrade totally differently. Their bases have different buildings that act different ways with like almost like totally new concepts, basically. So like for instance, the Tau. The Tau have this interesting thing where they can basically choose 2 different disciplines. They have like these 2 buildings that you can build. It's like the way of like the Mont Cao and like the way of the Kowloon or something. And basically the one that you build you can only build one of them. Once you build one of them, you can't build the other. I think you can destroy it and then build the other one, but you can only have one of them. Or it might even lock you in for like the rest of the game. I don't know. I didn't actually check. Now that I think of it. But basically, you can only build one, and it gives you access to different upgrades and units, and I think entire buildings actually. So like one of them, it's like the path of the killing blow, and the other one is like the path of the silent hunter. So the killing blow one gives you access to like the heavy weapons, more like heavy weapons infantry, more bigger bigger vehicles, harder hitting vehicles, and the silent killer one gives you access to like faster things, more stealth. There's technology that you can only research if you have one or the other. There are abilities that characters can only, like your hero unit can only use if you have one or the other. Like, oh, it's pretty interesting. The Tau also are the only ones who are like able to, they can field like a unique type of sort of unit. So basically, the Tau's deal in 40k is that they are a quote unquote peaceful and civilized society who wants to spread the message of the greater good throughout the galaxy, and cooperate with other races in peace and harmony. And if you don't want to cooperate, you will. If you don't want to, oh, you will. That's the Tau's deal. So there are races who have like consensually allied themselves with the Tau. One of whom is they're called the Kroot. So the Kroot are like these weird kind of lanky green guys, and they are playable like in the actual tabletop game. And what's really cool is that, so like I really actually like how the Tau Empire plays. So the idea is, so the other deal with the Tau is that they're like the gods of ranged combat in 40k. Like they're all about long ranged, high energy, hard hitting weapons, and like a pretty decent speed. Of course, with the caveat, the trade off that they're basically the zoners. They're like the Dalsum of 40k. They are useless up close. They fall like flies. From what I understand on the tabletop, their main strategies revolve around just staying out of range and having, I think they might, I don't know exactly what they have to protect against like shooting, but yeah, they fucking crumple like paper if you hit them with melee. They're useless up close. So in Dawn of War, you can what's the term that they use? You can create or recruit whatever Kroot, and the Kroot like units serve as your like frontline melee force, and they have this cool ability that you can upgrade from your base, where you can can get the ability to just like do this crazy long range leap. So you get this whole force of like the back line is their big superpowered vehicles, and then a bunch of like Tau infantry like fire warriors, and then in front is like all the Kroots. And the Kroots, you're moving all your whole army, and you right click and target an enemy, like enemies, and the Kroots all just leap at them, and the rest of your soldiers and vehicles get into formation. You see all the little progress bars as they're like loading up, and then they just light into them. And the Kroots are surprisingly resilient. Really cool. I really like how they play. I think it's neat. So are the Necrons. The Necrons are super cool. If anyone doesn't recall, they're the Egyptian-themed Terminators of 40k. And so they basically have this their resources work entirely differently. Pretty much every other race uses two resources, requisition and energy. And requisition is usually used for things that create like either like build buildings, I believe, or reinforce troops and like recruit troops and stuff like that. And then energy is kind of used for a bunch of other stuff like buildings and sometimes units, and I forget exactly what. I don't know. I didn't pay that close attention. All I know is that you want a lot of both of them. Necrons don't use requisition because they technically don't like recruit things. They just, because more Necrons aren't created, there's like a finite number of them, they just awaken. So they only use energy as a resource, and they have a secondary sort of resource or bar meter thing. It's not a bar, but it's like a meter. It's a percentage that goes up, which is like their like awakening level or like time level or something like that. And it's essentially the more strategic. So usually, the way that every other race works is that you capture control points, and then you that will start generating you requisition, and then you can build like you can basically reinforce it by putting buildings on top of it, called like a listening post, and that will increase the amount of requisition you get from the control point. But because Necrons don't use requisition, capturing those points increases their like time meter. That's what I'll call it. I'll call it time meter. And the higher it is, the higher the percentage is, the faster the faster all of your processes become. So like at the start, they ramp up, which is actually a great way of communicating the idea that they like awaken over time. So like they ramp up. You ramp up by capturing these points and building obelisks on top of them, which increases it even more. And then that in turn makes like you produce units faster, you build buildings faster, your cooldowns go up faster, or go down faster. It's really cool. So it's like this rising momentum of power. The more controls the more points on the map they control. Speaking of, the other thing that Dark Crusade, the other thing that Dark Crusade adds is a campaign that is way more interesting than Winter Assault. It's basically like how to describe it? It's like the idea is that there's this one planet, and every single army that's represented in the game is trying to get control of the planet. So there's like 20 or so territories, and each one, it's like playing a board game or like a Risk or like a game of Conquest. So you pick a race, and then you start out on a territory that's like your home base, and then you can move each turn to a new one, into enemy territory, and you'll play like a game of Dawn of War. And winning that will then win you the territory. And some of them can be really fucking difficult. And they actually have like different scenarios and things. Like I started off playing Tau because I wanted to see how they played. And so one of the first ones that I encountered was you don't actually get a home base. The idea is that it's a big army of the Tau that they've sent out gets like lost in the desert, I think. And so it's just, you're just guiding your army around trying to destroy as many enemy buildings as possible. And there's this whole system of, you have like a leader unit who's like an actual character, and you can like upgrade them in between turns and stuff like that, or every turn. Like you can give them upgrades which they will then get in combat. You can like recruit other units who will then be like like you'll start the game with them, or the next like mission with them. And the idea is just to like conquer the world, basically. And it's so much more interesting and like more substantial than the other last two campaigns, honestly. I mean, the base game's campaign was perfectly fine. And I guess Winter Assault design-wise, or like in concept, was fine. Just the gameplay got really fucking annoying. Really sloggy. Like way too difficult, honestly. Way too difficult. And just tedious, like not fun. Like fuck that terrible Imperial Guard mission where you gotta like transport You need to transport a tank to a location. It's like imagine an escort mission, but the worst. It's like you gotta transport this tank, this Space Marine tank, to a gate, and along the way there's a fucking literally unending flood of enemies constantly on your ass, constantly. And the tank does not want to fucking follow the route that you take to the gate. And it's such a fucking pain. Like, get in front. Like, the gate will not lower. It will not start lowering until the tank is in front of it. And I'm like, get in front of the fucking gate. Get in front of the fucking gate. Why are you, oh my god. It's getting, like, hung up on, like, shooting enemies and stuff. I'm like, get to the fucking gate. Get to the fucking gate right now. If we open the gate, we can get through, but you're, oh my god. And then, like, by the time the enemies are killed, there's, like, another wave coming. And then I just lose the mission. I have to, like, load a save. Oh, god, the worst. Just, oh my god. So, yeah, I would suggest skipping Dark Crusade, Winter Assault. I would skipping straight to Dark Crusade if you finished Dawn of War 1 and you liked it. But, yeah, Dark Crusade's going to give you a lot more to do, a lot more content, way more interesting, tons of I was checking out some of the skirmish maps, tons, like just a total boatload of maps that you can play on with, I think, up to 8 players. Great time. Jeez, okay, I'm going for about 2 hours. If you've been listening to me so far, thank you so much for listening to me ramble. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them down in the comments below, but please leave them in the form of a question, because I don't just want to read your thoughts out loud. Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow, or next week, sorry. Upload schedule for main channel might get a little weird, because I'm going to be gone for a week. So I don't know how much I'm going to actually be able to put out, but, yeah, I'll tell you guys about what I was at, the convention I'm going to. Should I say this for safety reasons? Fuck it. I'm going to Crunchyroll Expo in San Jose. I'll be down there with some friends. If you happen to be there, you'll probably be able to pick out the fucking 6-foot skinny white guy. Look for the Ramona Flowers cosplayer next to him. Yeah, it would be cool. I have no idea if anyone who watches the channel is going, but it would be fun to, like, I don't know. Feel free to say hi. I don't mind, like, stopping and taking pictures with people. Probably won't give you a hug. I don't really like doing that, but yeah, feel free. Anyway, goodbye.